The moment the red live light flashed on, 20 million viewers tuned in. But backstage at Madison Square Garden, Merly Morley stood in the shadows where she belonged, or so everyone kept reminding her. "Remember your place," Avalon Rose hissed, her perfectly contoured face inches from Merly's. The pop sensation's breath reeked of energy drinks and desperation. "You're back up. Background, invisible. Got it?" Merly nodded silently. She'd heard this speech before every show for 3 years, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was the way Avalon's hands trembled as she applied another layer of lipstick. Maybe it was how the star kept checking and rechecking her in-ear monitors. Or maybe it was the presence of Richard Banks, Universal Music's CEO, in the executive box, something that only happened for career-defining performances. 5 minutes. The stage manager's voice cut through the chaos. Avalon spun around, her 6-inch heels clicking aggressively on the polished floor. "And you," she pointed at Merly again, "remember not one note louder than rehearsal. Your furniture. Expensive furniture, but furniture." The other backup singers, Keisha and Dana, exchanged glances. They'd witnessed this ritual humiliation countless times. Keisha sometimes whispered apologies to Merly in the van rides between venues. Dana had once asked why Merly tolerated it because Merly had said simply, "Sometimes the shadow's exactly where you need to be." Neither woman understood what that meant. Not yet. The stage erupted in pyrotechnics as Avalon strutted out, her crystallized bodysuit catching every spotlight. 20,000 phones lifted immediately, capturing the entrance. The crowd's roar was deafening, the kind of sound that made the floor vibrate and chest cavities hum. Merly took her position with the other backup singers far left, partially hidden by smoke machines. She memorized every mark, every cue, every breath. 3 years of invisibility had taught her that precision was survival. The opening bars of Gravity began Avalon's biggest hit, the song that had spent 16 weeks at #1, the song that had made her a household name. Everything was perfect, rehearsed, controlled, until it wasn't. 2 minutes into the song, something shifted. Merly noticed it first, a slight delay between Avalon's lip movements and the vocal track. Then Avalon's hand flew to her earpiece. Her eyes widened in panic. The playback track, her safety net, her secret had failed. Dead silence in her in-ears, on live television, in front of the world. The band, unaware of the technical failure, continued playing. The crowd kept singing along to words that weren't coming from their idol's mouth. Avalon turned, searching desperately for her tech crew. Her choreographed movements forgotten, she stumbled in her heels. Instead of finding help, her eyes locked on Merly, and in that moment, something dark crossed the pop star's face. Not just panic rage. "You!" Avalon screamed into her mic, forgetting 20 million people were watching. The band stuttered to a stop. "You did something. You jealous nobody. You're nothing, a voice in the dark, a shadow. You sabotaged." The words echoed through the arena. Parents covered their children's ears. The cameraman, a 20-year veteran of live television, didn't know whether to keep rolling or cut away. His director's voice in his earpiece was just panicked screaming. "3 years I've carried you," Avalon continued, her carefully crafted image crumbling in real time. 3 years of your pathetic, grateful face. You probably think you're special because you can hold a note. You're replaceable. You're... Bus... The crowd grew restless. Confused murmurs rippled through the arena like waves. Some people started booing. Others pulled out their phones not to record a concert anymore, but to capture a disaster. Avalon's manager, Jerry Goldstein, was frantically gesturing from side stage. His face had turned a shade of purple that couldn't be healthy for a 60-year-old man with 2 previous heart attacks. The disaster wasn't just being broadcast globally, it was trending. Avalon F. Fails was already climbing Twitter's charts. Career-ending silence stretched on. The other performers had frozen like statues. Keisha's eyes were wide with secondhand horror. Dana had actually taken a step backward, as if Avalon's meltdown might be contagious. The band members were looking at each other, instruments still raised but producing no sound. Then Merle stepped forward. Just one step into the light. She didn't ask permission, didn't wait for a cue. She simply raised her handheld mic, the one they gave backup singers, that was usually turned down so low it might as well be a prop, and began where Avalon had stopped, when gravity pulls you under. The voice that filled Madison Square Garden wasn't just good, it was transcendent, raw, unfiltered. It wrapped around 20,000 hearts and squeezed. Every note Avalon had struggled to lip sync to for 3 years flowed effortlessly from the woman everyone ignored. But this wasn't the studio version. This was something more. Merle had spent 3 years listening to her own voice, coming from another woman's mouth. She'd watched Avalon receive Grammy Awards for vocal performances she'd never actually performed. She'd stood in shadows while critics praised the unique emotional quality of Avalon's voice. Now, for the first time, the voice had a face, and the weight becomes too real. Security guards who'd been moving toward the stage stopped mid-stride. The camera operator slowly zoomed in on Merle, his hands moving on instinct. In the control booth, the director stopped screaming. The Twitter trend changed. When the lights go dark around you, Avalon stood frozen center stage, her mouth open but producing no sound. The $10,000 crystals on her outfit caught the lights as she trembled. Her eyes darted between Merle and the crowd, watching her empire crumble in real time, because everyone in that arena, everyone watching around the world, suddenly understood something. They recognized this voice, and you cannot help but feel it was the voice from every album, the voice from every hit single, the voice that had sold 30 million records worldwide, the voice they'd tattooed lyrics from onto their bodies, the voice they'd walked down aisles to, the voice they'd played at funerals and births and every meaningful moment in between. But it had never belonged to Avalon Rose, that the darkness might just steal. What makes you real? Merle held the final note longer than the studio recording ever did. She held it past the point of showing off, past the point of proving herself, held it until it became something else entirely, a declaration. When she finally released it, the silence was absolute. You could hear Avalon's crystallized outfit trembling. You could hear Jerry Goldstein's ragged breathing from 30 feet away. You could hear papers rustling in the executive box where Richard Banks sat. Then one person clapped, just one. A teenage girl in the front row who'd saved for 6 months to afford her ticket. Then her mother joined, then the entire row, then the section. Then the arena exploded. But it wasn't the typical concert roar. It was something deeper, the sound of 20,000 people simultaneously realizing they'd been deceived and discovering something real in the same moment. Phones weren't just raised. Now they were searching. Within seconds, Google searches for Avalon, Rose real singer spiked 10,000%. Old contract leaks were being re-examined. Anonymous music industry tweets from 3 years ago were being screenshot and shared. But Merle wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking at the executive box, where she knew Universal Music's CEO, Richard Banks, was sitting. The same man who'd signed her Ghost Singer contract 3 years ago. The same contract that paid her $50,000 a year to be the voice of a multi-million-dollar empire. The same contract that legally erased her existence. He was already on his phone. She knew why, because buried in Clause 47B of that contract was one line his lawyers had missed. In the event of public performance necessity, artist retains right to perform. She just performed. Publicly, necessarily. The backup singer had just become the main event. Security, Avalon's voice cracked through the mic she'd forgotten she was holding. Get her out, she's violating her contract. She's actually... A voice boomed from the executive box. Richard Banks had stood up. His own mic in hand, CEOs always had override access at major venues. She's not. The arena fell silent again. This was better than any reality show. Clause 47. B. Banks continued, his voice carrying the weight of a man who just realized his biggest asset had become his biggest liability. Miss Morley performed out of necessity. Your technical difficulties created that necessity. Avalon's face cycled through emotions like a broken slot machine. You can't do this. I made her. Without me, she's nothing. Merle finally spoke, not singing now, just talking. And somehow, that was even more powerful. You're right, she said, her voice carrying without any effort. Without you, I'm nothing. I'm not Avalon Rose. I'm not a brand. I'm not a product. I'm just a voice. She turned to the crowd. My name is Merly Morley. For 3 years, I've been the voice you loved, but I've also been a ghost, a shadow, nothing. The crowd was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. Tonight, you gave me something I'd forgotten existed. You heard me, not through someone else, not filtered or hidden or packaged, just me. And for that moment, I wasn't nothing. So, thank you. She set the microphone down carefully on the stage floor. The sound it made echoed through the arena like a judge's gavel. Then she turned and walked off stage. Not rushed, not dramatic, just walking. The cameras followed her until she disappeared into the wings. Then they swung back to Avalon, standing alone on a stage built for spectacle, surrounded by silence. Avalon started, but without the playback, without the production, without the voice that had never been hers, she had nothing to say. The house lights came up. The live light went dark. 20 million viewers sat in their homes, processing what they just witnessed. By the time Merle reached the backstage exit, her phone, the ancient flip phone she'd never bothered to upgrade, had received over 200 calls. She didn't answer any of them. Keisha caught up with her in the parking lot. Merle, where are you going? You just changed everything? Merle paused by the beat up Honda Civic she'd driven to every session, every rehearsal, every moment of her invisible career. I know, she said simply, but the contracts, the lawyers, Avalon will destroy you. She already did, Merle replied. 3 years ago, when I signed my voice away, when I agreed to be nothing. So what now? Merle looked back at Madison Square Garden. Already news vans were arriving. The story would be everywhere by morning. The girl who sang in shadows had stepped into the light and revealed an entire industry built on lies. Now, Merle smiled, the first real smile Keisha had ever seen from her. Now I find out who Merly Morley is when she's not pretending to be nobody. She got in her car and drove away. Behind her, Madison Square Garden buzzed with the kind of energy that only comes from witnessing something real in a world of fabrication. Lawyers were being called. Contracts were being reviewed. An entire industry was scrambling to figure out how to handle a ghost who decided to become flesh and blood. But before you hear what happened, when the lawyers descended, when the contracts were challenged, when the music industry's darkest secrets split wide open, there's something you need to understand about the price of a voice and the cost of silence.